Hello Tarot Trainees. Today I'm going to move on to the Minor Arcana. And I'm going to begin not by going through the pips for each of the four suits, but first of all just by helping you to explore the four suits a little bit more by talking about the elements which underpin each of them, and also by talking about the meanings of the numbers of the 10 pips. Because often when somebody is faced with the Minor Arcana, they look at it and they're completely overwhelmed, obviously, by the sheer number of cards, and they seem to tell themselves that every single card is a completely fresh message, there's no prior association with it whatsoever, and they're going to have to learn every single card from scratch. When in fact, if you have a look at the elemental associations and the meaning of the number for each card, you will already know something about each card before you begin. So if that doesn't sound too complicated, it is a good idea for me as the teacher to talk with you a little bit about what the numbers 1 to 10 mean with the pips, and also where the elements fit into tarot. Now, the presence of the 5 elements in tarot is thus. We have the suit of pentacles, the suit of wands, the suit of cups, and the suit of swords. Each of them represent a different element, one of the 4 elements. And it's widely believed, and many people that read tarot are proponents of the theory, that the major arcana, which you just explored with me in the last episode, is representative of the 5th element, which is spirit. And I like this idea very much, and I think that's where I drop anchor as well. I think that if you look at the themes that come up in the major arcana, it definitely is representative of the element of spirit. So the idea of core being, the idea of the collective unconscious, the interconnectedness of all things, and that kind of stuff. So I would say yes, that the major arcana is representative of spirit. The suit of pentacles is representative of the element of earth. The suit of wands is representative of fire. Cups, water, and swords, finally, air. Now, in some tarot decks, the suit of wands and the suit of swords are reversed in their elemental association. Don't ask me why, I'm not sure. With the Rider-Waite, it's definitely wands that pertain to fire and swords that pertain to air, but you may have gotten yourself a deck where the book that comes with the deck, or the deck itself, may have strong elemental associations that are changed. So you may find that in your deck, swords are the suit of fire and wands are the suit of air. That will not happen in the vast majority of cases, but if you do have a deck like that, do not worry. Just remember that when I'm discussing air and I'm holding up a sword with your deck, you're supposed to be focusing on the suit of wands if that's the air suit in your deck. Again, I'm not sure why that mix up, but some decks do that. So I just thought I'd get that out of the way now. So I'm going to talk a little bit first of all about what each of the 4 elements mean in tarot and what the associations are, so that you will have an idea when you look at each of the 4 suits what they actually pertain to, or what the underlying themes are with all of them. Firstly, with the suit of pentacles, and remember with your deck it might be the suit of coins or the suit of nuggets, whatever it is, but I'm talking about the deck that kind of pertains to the suit of pentacles. The association here elementally is earth. And earth is supposed to represent anything that takes place in the tangible realm or the material realm, so we're thinking about the physical world here. So the themes that tend to come up with the earth element would be money and finances, career and work, and health and well-being. We also might be looking at things like the 5 senses, the enjoyment of sex or the enjoyment of exercise, that kind of thing, and the way that you relate to the tangible realm. And it's also got a lot to do with anything that can be achieved or maintained or lost in the physical realm. So it could be to do with housing issues, or it could be to do with possessions, that kind of thing. So we're looking at very earthy ideas here, and that's the best way to remember what the associations for earth are, is you just think of things like down to earth, get your feet on the ground, that kind of thing. We're thinking about real world things. We're thinking about things in this realm that affect us in the here and now, in our bodies or in our environments, in our habitats, that kind of thing. Then moving on to the suit of wands, which is the suit of fire. Fire elementally is associated with passion, with creativity to an extent, and also with destruction and creation. So the idea that something is stopped or released or destroyed, and then something else is birthed or manifested or created or put into being. So there's a lot of ideas of forward motion with fire, and with passion, with your personal passion, your personal desires, your goals, that kind of thing. So So when we think about the element of fire and the suit of wands, we're often thinking about making things come into being, that energy, that spark that needs to occur to make something happen. So, you know, it is about passion, and it is about kind of drive and ambition, I would say, is what the fire suit kind of often pertains to or lends itself to. With the suit of swords having the air element as its correspondence, air is much more about, it can be about character, it can be about communication, it's about words quite often, it's about points of view, so it's about your beliefs, your ethics, the beliefs that actually shape who you are. And it's about your communication with other people, so it's about your ability to debate, your ability to communicate your ideas. A lot of different themes can come up in the suit of swords that pertain to these air associations. So how you deal with other people, how you deal with conflict and conflict resolution, how you manifest your intent through what you say and how you present yourself, that kind of thing. So that, I would say, is quite strong with the air element in tarot. And finally, with the suit of cups, we're looking at the element of water. And the suit of cups is all about emotions. It's about the emotional realm. It's about how you connect to other people, the interconnectedness between you and others. It's about love and friendship and family ties, but it's also about spirituality and the way you relate to and connect with yourself. So there's a big theme of intuition and spirituality here as well, to an extent. And if you think about the element of water and the way it changes and the way it moves into its environment, the way it shapes itself to fit the vessel it's in, and also the way it changes from ice and then onto mist and then sort of gases and then back into water, the way it tends to change and you know, kind of fulfill different requirements as necessary. Think about how your emotional spectrum changes and how fluid it is, and how things change like that for you in your emotional spectrum. That's a good way to remember what the element of water is all about in tarot. So just to recap, we have the earth element, which is all about you know, health and stability financially, work, that kind of issue, your environment, your housing, anything like that. Fire is the element that pertains to passion, creativity, doing what you want, getting what you want, forward motion, that drive, that ambition, that kind of thing. The air element in tarot, which is associated with swords, this is all about your communication, your intellect, the realm of the mind, the way you present yourself, the things you believe, the way you see yourself and the world, that kind of thing. Intellectual jousting, expanding your mind in terms of knowledge and, you know, what you can attain, what you can amass intellectually. And then the element of water in tarot, strongly associated with cups. This is about feeling, interconnectedness, spirituality, personal development, your emotional realm. So these are the four elements as they pertain to the four suits. And so if you look at any of your pips in the minor arcana, all you have to do really first of all is look at their elemental association, and you will get some sense, without looking at the symbology, without reading the book that you've been given with the deck, anything like that, you will get some kind of foundational sense of what that card pertains to, or the theme that it taps into strongly. So now that I've given you some starting point for the elements in tarot, I'm going to move on to having a look at the minor arcana 1 to 4 suits, looking at the pip cards. So what I'm going to do, because this could get quite complicated, if you imagine that you have your, say for example, your suit of wands, you've got the ace of wands right up to the king of wands. What I'm going to do with the pips is I'm going to cut away the court cards. So take your suit of wands in your tarot deck, spread them out from the ace right through to the king. Now I want you to take away the page, the knight, the king and the queen, because we're going to deal with the court cards on their own. They're going to be their own animal very much. What I want you to focus on are the pips, so that's the ace through to the 10. And I'm going to focus on every single suit, because all of the numbers 1 to 10 actually represent pretty much the same thing. They tap into the same themes. So what I'm doing here is I'm giving you an underlying understanding of all of the 4 suits pip cards, hopefully by the time we're finished. Okay, so the first thing is first, the ace. The ace of all of the 4 suits you will normally find looks a little bit different to the other cards. The ace is obviously not numbered, so it's meant to represent the 1, so it's meant to represent the beginning, if you like. And what I would say is that it's normally going to look a little bit larger than life compared to the other cards. There normally won't be any human figures in there or any kind of situational context. It's basically going to look like this. This card looks very different to the rest of the cards in the suit of cups. Obviously, it's just sort of quite an overwhelming, iconic image. It doesn't really have any situation in it that I can latch onto or understand. It's just kind of this larger than life image of a cup. And most tarot decks will be the same. When you look at your aces, you'll realise there's something a little bit different going on there. There's not really much situation to grasp onto. The reason for that is that the ace normally pertains to the very beginning, the potential, the possibility. So basically, when you look at the ace is actually a reflection of the overall feeling of the suit. The ace is a representation of the whole of the suit itself. So for me now here, the Ace of Cups, that is an overwhelming representation of everything that the suit of cups as a whole represents. So all you have to do when you look at the ace in any minor arcana suit is to think about the elemental association. So in this case, it's love, it's relationships, it's family ties, spirituality, personal development. The ace is a representation of all that is potential and possible in that realm of life. So it could be when the Ace of Cups comes up that we're looking at a new romance or a new love. It could be that it's a new discovery that the querent's made about themselves, a new stage in terms of their spirituality. It could be that there is a lot of potential open to them in terms of love and friendship, but there's not really any specific direction yet. There's not really anything necessarily going on that needs to be analysed. It's more of the overwhelming force of what is potential in that realm of life, and that's all you really need to remember about the aces. Do not be daunted by them. They are merely a picture image of the whole of their suit personified, so that's the best way and easiest way to remember them. The twos in the minor arcana are very, very reflective of balance, duality, making a decision, or having two pathways and having to kind of connect with both but ultimately choose one. If you think about two in terms of yin and yang, that's very much what the twos in the minor arcanas are kind of communicating. There's that balance there, or there's that need for balance there. There's that necessity to see both sides. So sometimes it's about decision making and meting out something in your own mind, and other times it's just about a perfect balance between two things. So for example, let's look at the Two of Pentacles. The Two of Pentacles in the Rider-Waite deck is clearly a representation that there is some kind of decision happening. There's a balance of the forces of life in the material realm, and there may be a decision between one course of action and another. And if you look further at the symbology, the figure in the card is standing behind, in front of a vast ocean with ships on the ocean kind of going in different directions along the way. So often with this card we are looking at a choice between staying and going, or a choice between releasing or amassing, a choice between two courses of action in that kind of context. Looking at the Two of Swords, you see a decision-making process happening. You see a woman with two choices, and she's having to kind of divine with herself and her intuition which one's right for her. Or if you look at the Two of Cups, there's obviously a perfect balance there between two individuals who have a perfect and all-encompassing understanding of each other and their situation. There's an exchange taking place. There's obviously a balance there. So when you look at twos, we're thinking about balance, duality, yin and yang, the meeting out of opposites to create something that's a little more whole. Then when we move on to the threes in the minor arcana, threes are often very representative of some kind of small completion or roundedness. So it's certainly not the end of the journey, but if you imagine a stool has three legs, and once a stool has three legs, it's stable. Imagine a stool with two legs, it's just going to fall over, there's going to be no stability there. So when you think about the threes and you're stuck on what they mean, I would go for the three-legged stool analogy. Imagine a stool with three legs, it's stable, you can build things on top of it, you can put building blocks on top of it, you can sit on top of it, there's a foundation there. And I think the threes really in tarot can often be representative of the first beginnings of a foundation, or the first stirrings of a knowledge of your core being and what that is, and what you need and what's surplus to requirement. So for example with the Three of Pentacles is often a representation of the beginning of learning something, or the beginning of taking an interest in the world around you in some way in order to amass some kind of knowledge. So within that there's the idea that a strong foundation comes with a strong understanding of your craft, or a strong understanding of the skills you need to maintain your craft to a certain level. So there's that feeling of foundation. The Three of Cups is a representation of strong friendships, strong enduring friendships or family ties, people you know you can turn to when the shit hits the fan. That again is a representation of foundation. It's a representation of understanding what it is that works for you, what it is that you need to go back to time and time again, what it is that fulfills you. The Three of Swords, communication, openness with other people, using your words to correctly portray to people how you feel. Again, this is all about the building of a foundation, and with Wands it's the same thing. With Wands, the three is kind of pertaining to moving forward into that new boundary, over that boundary, moving into new territory. And again, that's the idea of starting to build some kind of foundation. So there's a desire for core knowledge there. The three is a symbol of wholeness to an extent. Obviously, it's right at the beginning of the journey, but we're getting somewhere now. We feel that we are beginning to understand what it is we need to lay down so that we can build upon it. The four is just moving on from the three, really. The four is also about strong foundations, but it's also about making sure that we don't become stagnant. It's about making sure that we build on what we've learned with the three, we go with what works for us, we strengthen what's worked for us, but we need to make sure that we're not always looking back at who we were in the three. We need to make sure that we're looking forward and we are working on what the three has allowed us to do. We are building on it, you know, we're not just becoming stagnant or nostalgic or sentimental. So, for example, the Four of Cups, perfect example. This guy is meditative, he's engrossed in his own mind and the workings of it, he's figuring something very important out. But there's a warning element with the four. He needs to make sure that he doesn't become stagnant. He needs to make sure that he's always building that next bridge and not getting stuck where he is. Same with the Four of Pentacles. There's clearly been something amassed here. This guy is clearly doing something for his future that is productive. He has some money, it's great, but he's holding on to it too tightly. The danger with the four is always that. Make sure that you don't become stuck, make sure you don't become stagnant. Always make sure you're moving forward. The Four of Swords is another perfect example, really. It's this idea that you can stop and contemplate and relax, let that anxiety lift, give yourself some time to consider carefully before you proceed. The danger with the four is that he is still for too long, or he feels anxious about being still. He feels that tension, he feels that anxiety. You know, there's always a danger with the four that you're not moving forward. So you need to make sure that what you've built on with the three is going to propel forward into something else. Fives in the minor arcana are normally about instability, conflict of some kind, or some kind of test which you need to kind of pass in order to move forward beyond it. The Five of Pentacles is a representation of poverty, financial instability, difficulties in that kind of area where you feel that you are not able to feel secure with what you've amassed, or there's some kind of a trial or tribulation that you've experienced that you now need to deal with. The Five of Swords represents a conflict of some kind where two people have an irreconcilable difference and they just can't put it back together. That kind of thing. And the same with the Five of Cups and the Five of Wands. You will see in your own decks that there is some kind of a suggestion normally with the fives of a test of some kind, a suggestion of instability, a suggestion that you need to now work out what you need to do in terms of core foundation and core healing to address this challenge with diplomacy and fairness. Make sure that you don't lose yourself in the chaos of it. Make sure that you know your own mind, you know what you want to do, and you don't crumble under the pressure of this test. So ordinarily the fives do have a bit of a tumultuous meaning like that. And the sixes represent the way you have dealt with that challenge, the way you've moved on from that challenge, and the way that you correspond and communicate with the outer world. So it's normally about an exchange of views with other people, or the way you have dealt with or reacted to other people and the way they've behaved. I think it's about, after the chaos of the fives, the sixes are often about how you now are beginning to relate to the world. What have you learned? How can you put that into practice, kind of thing. I think the sixes can sometimes appear complicated, but if we look at the pictorial suggestions from the Rider-Waite, and if you look on your own decks what kind of symbology you can find that pertains to this theme, I'm sure you'll see that sixes are really just a representation of how you link to and relate to everything else and how that's going for you. So, for example, with the Six of Swords, we see a moving away from a past pain. We see two people that are kind of moving on to a new life. So that, in a way, in itself, is a suggestion of how they've related to their own challenge and how they're relating to the world around them and how they're coping with what's happened. The Six of Pentacles is all about how you relate to other people in terms of generosity, in terms of giving, in terms of trusting people, loyalties, friendship, that kind of thing. Who do you help? Who do you keep at arm's length? So again, it's about how you correspond to and react with the world around you as a result of what you've learned from the aces right up to the fives. And the same with the others as well. The sevens in tarot are very representative of taking those lessons from the sixes with regard to how you relate to the world and how you relate to others and taking them to a deeper level. Actually, at the moment with the sevens, it's about a deeper spiritual development. It's about how you have learned and adjusted because of the challenges you faced and how you're now going to put that into your own sense of development. So, for example, let's have a look at the Seven of Cups. The Seven of Cups is about now prioritising what you really want out of life, making those choices, having a look at everything that's before you, everything that you could possibly grasp hold of, and deciding now what is it that holds true to you? What is it that you really want to go forth and do? And the same with the Seven of Swords. The Seven of Swords is all about who to trust. Can you trust yourself? Are your motives pure? Are other people's motives pure? We're going deeper now. We're going deeper from the lessons of the sixes, and we're kind of looking at how we ourselves can spiritually progress, having learned what we've learned. We don't want to become bitter. We don't want to become passive. We don't want to retreat from the world, but we want to use our lessons to harmonise, so that we can move forward in a more stable way, a way that promotes balance and harmony. Again, with the Seven of Wands, biting off more than you can chew, trying to react to everything at once, trying to do everything at once, going until you're absolutely out of energy. This is not the way we want to deal with and relate to the world. So all of the lessons in the sevens are about how you as a spiritual being have processed your lessons so that you can relate to the world in a healthy way. And there are warning signs with the sevens, and that's a great thing. The eights are about power and motion. And if you think about the fact that the eight in the major arcana is strength, this is perfect because really the eights in the minor arcana are all microcosms of that macrocosm of strength. They're all about forward motion, power. They're about the lessons of the 5 and 6 and 7 cards actually being put into action. We are now moving forward. We are now deciding on our direction. We have a great deal of energy to put towards it. With the eights, there's very much a theme of transformation or metamorphosis or of a great leap forwards almost. So for example, if you look at the eight of cups in your deck, you will normally find that the Eight of Cups has something to do with moving away from a painful former time, deciding that you've taken the lessons that you can take from it, but you're not going to be bitter about it. You're going to move forward and get something new for yourself. That's exactly what this guy is doing. He's moving away from the past and into the future. The same with, for example, the Eight of Wands. There are many things. There's so much motion in this card. If you just look at it, there's wands flying through the air, and this is all about grasping your opportunities, recognizing when they're coming to you. Lots and lots of things happening, lots of high energy, lots of motion. And if you look at the Eight of Swords, although it looks like stagnancy, although it looks like a standstill, there's very much a suggestion that she is right on the cusp of transformation. And that's a lot what this card is about. It's about those last throes of repression before something really happens. And even if you just look at her image in this particular deck, in the Rider-Waite, she looks like a caterpillar in a chrysalis waiting to emerge as a butterfly. So even with a card like that looks like it represents stagnation and stillness, there's still a great sense that something is about to take place. Some kind of knowledge is about to be amassed and thrown into manifestation. Now we're moving on to the nines, and the nines are about a winding down from that energy of the eights. So the nines are more about not resting on our laurels particularly, but having a look at what's gone on so far, what's worked, what hasn't worked, what cycles are perpetuating, what things did we put into play that really came to fruition. So it's a time of reflection, it's a time of celebrating what's happened so far and what we've actually managed to work towards, but it can also be a time of trauma or a time of feelings of failure, because when we look back on what hasn't worked or when we look back on what didn't go so well, obviously there can be those emotional throes of pain about that and of disappointment. So looking at the Nine of Swords in the Rider-Waite, for example, is a perfect illustration of somebody who's in deep angst and in the throes of really deep negative thought about everything that's gone before, some kind of anxiety. They've awoken from a nightmare of some kind. So it's reflection, but it's not going so well. It's lending itself more to the negatives than the positives. But then if you look at the Nine of Pentacles, it's a perfect representation of a woman who is celebrating what's gone right so far, and she's walking around in her garden, the flowers have bloomed, all of those seeds that she put into place with the 2 and 3 way back when have come to fruition, and it's allowed her that moment to just contemplate and understand which cycles have gone right and which things she was right to do away with. So I think all of the nines are about stopping and thinking, just having that little bit of reflection and looking back on your history and recognising what it's done to you in the here and now, what it's given to you as an individual, that kind of thing. And finally, with the tens, of course, the tens are all about the completion of that cycle. So the tens are all about ultimate metamorphosis onto the next stage. It's about the ending of a learning process and about what's been amassed at the end. So they are all representations of wholeness in one way or another. The Ten of Swords, obviously it always looks so dramatic in the Rider-Waite deck, but the Ten of Swords is an image of death, and it's an image of almost untimely, unexpected, unpredictable or unseemly death. So it really is about metamorphosis beyond, and any of the Rider-Waite books that you'll get that tell you about the Ten of Swords will tell you that it is about a time of great change, it's about a time of moving forward. The Ten of Cups in the Rider-Waite, very much about celebration, domestic harmony, equilibrium, something has been achieved, something that has been achieved through diligent, self-conscious effort, and that's being celebrated. With the Ten of Wands, there's obviously a huge bountiful harvest there. He's got to be very careful that he deals with it in the correct way or he's going to burn himself out. But it is sort of the end of a great time of growing and learning, manifesting, waiting, patience. Suddenly now it's all in his arms, you know, and it's about what goes on from there. So tens are not the ultimate ending, but they are a representation of wholeness and graduation to the next stage. So if you now look at all of your minor arcana pips, all the 1 to 10s in all of the 4 suits in front of you, try now to have a look at those patterns, establish those patterns, you know. Get a piece of paper and write down the numbers 1 to 10 or ace to 10 on each of the pieces of paper, and write down which themes actually come up in all of the 4 fours and all of the 4 sixes in your particular tarot deck. You will notice an underlying theme. I promise you that. It is not just chaotic, mad, every single card has completely its own message and there's nothing that you can really grasp. If you look at the numbers, have a look at the underlying meanings and themes of those numbers, and there are some. There are correspondences with each number, and that will help you to get in touch with the minors so much more easily. And also, of course, having a look at their elemental correspondences is really going to help you as well. And remember, when we go forward into the future with this course and we talk about doing readings and designing readings and dealing with questions that querents may have for you, it's perfectly fine for pentacles to come up in a love reading or for cups to come up in a reading about work. You know, it's not as though just because the cups deal with relationships and love and friendship and family and stuff, they don't work in a reading about finances or career. Of course they do. They all work in an all-encompassing way because all of the 4 elements have correspondences that leak into all areas of our lives. So do not worry about, you know, for example, pentacles just pertaining to work issues or swords just pertaining to arguments with other people, or it doesn't work like that. You can actually peel back the layers on every single card, and it's like an onion. There are many different layers. Every card that comes up in a tarot reading you do will have relevance and will have a suitable message. I promise you that, and I will teach you how that's done at a later stage. But for now, what I would suggest is do some journaling about the numbered cards in your minor arcana suits and have a look at the themes that seem to come up, and the fact that if you lay down the minor arcana suits 1 to 10, you will see that there is definitely a theme emerging. There's a pattern emerging. It begins with that potential, then it's the duality, then it's the foundations, then it's building on those foundations, then it's a challenge to those foundations, anything in opposition to those foundations. Then moving on with the sixes, it's how you put that into your life, it's how you manifest it with others. Moving on to the sevens, it's how you allow it to affect yourself, it's how you allow it to affect your own perception. With the eights, we're looking at that forward motion into transition. With the nines, we're looking at reflecting upon that transition. And with the 10, we're looking at the all-encompassing whole. We're looking at what's been learned, we're looking at the lesson that's been received. Okay, so that's all for now, and I hope that was helpful to you, and I hope you can all do some great journaling work and, you know, journal about the elements too. Journal about the 5 elements. Think about what they mean to you personally. Have a look at your decks and see what kind of messages the decks are trying to give you. Your own personal deck is trying to give you through its illustrations and symbology, because as I mentioned at the beginning of the course, the decks are so different. There's so much you can learn about your own particular deck that I'm not going to be able to give you. Messages that you're going to have to divine and work through on your own, because your deck is different to mine, and that's a great thing. That's an opportunity for exploration on a whole new level. You know, and the whole idea of tarot getting to that stage for you is that there are so many messages that you can put into the cards on your own, or get from the cards on your own, that you're never going to get from any teacher, no matter how thorough they are. So, you know, it is very much a personal journey. So connect with your deck, have a look for the elements in your deck, and kind of try and see which elements resonate with you strongly. Have a look at the symbology, see where water shows up, see where fire shows up, which colours might pertain to certain elements, and how does that rest with you. You know, journaling about elements and their associations in tarot is going to help you to deepen and strengthen your relationships with them, so that later on when they do show up in readings, you're going to have such a strong foundation to go on. You're going to be able to help your querent so much more through the messages and the lessons that come up time and time again with the elements in tarot and in life. Okay, thanks chickens, thank you for listening, much appreciated, blessed be.